I have everything I ever said I wanted. So why can't I remember the last time I actually wanted anything at all?
Vanessa Cole had built, by every financial measure, an unshakable life. A beautiful home, a husband who never once made her worry about money, a childhood promise to herself, finally, completely kept. Tonight, holding a t-shirt from a concert she couldn't fully remember attending, she realized she couldn't recall the last time she'd chosen anything simply because she wanted it. Welcome to Fresh Start Stories, inspiring stories about life, change, and the courage to begin again. Like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Vanessa Cole had grown up counting things other children didn't have to count. The exact number of days until her mother's next paycheck, the specific sound the refrigerator made when it was nearly empty, the particular shame of a lunch card declined in front of her entire 7th grade class. She remembered, with a specificity that had never faded, the particular way her mother's face would tighten at the grocery store checkout, doing silent math with her eyes as items moved down the belt, sometimes quietly asking the cashier to remove something at the last second. Vanessa had learned, long before she understood the word for it, to read the exact temperature of a room by watching her mother's shoulders. Tense meant money, and money in her childhood meant almost everything else too. By 19, she had made herself a promise with the flat, absolute certainty of someone who has genuinely suffered. She would never again let money decide what happened to her. Richard Whitfield had entered her life at 26, older, established, unhurried in exactly the way instability never was. He wasn't cruel, wasn't controlling. He was, if anything, generous almost to a fault, the kind of man who paid off her remaining student loans within their first year of dating without being asked, and never once mentioned it again. Vanessa had not, if she was being honest with the version of herself that still occasionally surfaced late at night, fallen desperately in love with Richard. She had fallen, with tremendous relief, into safety. When Richard proposed on a quiet Tuesday rather than anywhere dramatic, he wasn't a man for grand gestures, another quality Vanessa had counted at the time as a point in his favor. She remembered feeling something that, in the moment, she'd labeled certainty. Looking back later, she would recognize it more precisely as the specific, full-body exhale of a person finally setting down a weight they'd been carrying so long they'd forgotten it was there at all. She married him at 28 in a wedding her mother cried through, not from joy exactly, though there was joy in it, but from something closer to vindication, a mother watching her daughter secure the one thing she herself had never managed to secure. "You'll never have to worry the way I worried," her mother told her the morning of the wedding, adjusting Vanessa's veil with hands that had once counted grocery store coupons at a kitchen table by lamplight. "That's all I ever wanted for you." For the first several years, the arrangement worked exactly as advertised. Vanessa's anxiety around money, the specific physical tightness in her chest that used to arrive with every unexpected bill, simply stopped. She redecorated their house twice without checking a single balance. She took the international trips her childhood self had only seen in magazines. She told herself, repeatedly and with genuine conviction, that she was happy. And for a long while, the telling and the feeling were close enough to the same thing that she didn't examine the gap too closely. From the outside, the life she and Richard built together photographed beautifully, and Vanessa knew this because people told her so constantly, at dinner parties, in comment sections under vacation photos, in the specific tone certain relatives used when they said, only half joking, that she'd married well. She had gotten so practiced at receiving these comments graciously that she'd stopped noticing how little any of them actually asked about her. The gap became impossible to ignore on an unremarkable Thursday, 8 years into the marriage, when Vanessa was reorganizing the walk-in closet and found, in a box she hadn't opened since the move, the faded concert t-shirt from The Hook, a band she'd once driven 4 hours to see with her college roommate on a trip they could barely afford, sleeping in the car afterward to save on a hotel. She remembered, holding it, the specific electric feeling of that night with a clarity that frightened her, and then, immediately after, realized she genuinely could not name a single thing in the 8 years since that had made her feel anything close to it. She sat down on the closet floor, surrounded by clothes worth more than her mother's old car, and could not stop the tears that came, not sad, exactly, more disoriented, the particular grief of realizing you've been living someone else's version of your own life for so long, you'd stopped noticing the substitution. Richard found her there 20 minutes later, and his first instinct, kind as it was, revealed exactly how far apart they'd drifted. "What do you need?" he asked, already reaching for his phone. "I can call someone. We can get you whatever you—" "I don't need you to buy me anything," Vanessa said, and heard, saying it, how long it had been since she'd said a true sentence to him without softening it first. "I need you to understand that I don't actually know who I am anymore, and I don't think money can fix that." Richard sat down on the floor across from her, an oddly vulnerable gesture for a man who rarely sat on floors, and was quiet for a long moment. "I've known for a while that something was off," he finally said. "I told myself it was easier not to ask because I was scared of what the answer might be." It was, Vanessa realized, the most honest thing either of them had said to each other in over a year. "I don't know how to help with something I can't buy or fix," Richard admitted, his voice smaller than Vanessa had ever heard it. "That's the only language I actually know how to speak fluently." Vanessa reached over, not for his hand exactly, just close enough that their fingers brushed on the closet floor. "I'm not asking you to fix it," she said. "I think I'm asking you to just sit here with me while it's true for a while." Her mother's reaction, when Vanessa tried gently to explain the feeling weeks later, was disbelief edging into something sharper. "You have everything," her mother said, and Vanessa could hear, underneath the words, the specific fear of a woman who had once had nothing. "Do you understand what it took for you to have everything? Do you understand what I would have given for what you're calling empty?" "I do understand it, Mom," Vanessa said, her voice steadier than she expected. "That's exactly why this is so hard to say out loud, because I know how it sounds, coming from someone standing where I'm standing. But being safe and being myself turned out to be two completely different things, and I spent 8 years assuming they were the same." It was Mia, her college roommate, the one who'd slept in the car with her after that concert, who now taught middle school and lived in a rented 2-bedroom she'd been renovating herself, one room at a time, for 6 years, who said the thing that actually landed. Vanessa had called her, hesitant, half expecting judgment from a friend whose life looked by every conventional measure less successful than her own. "I used to envy you a little," Mia admitted honestly over the phone. "Your life looked so solved, but solved and alive aren't the same thing, Nessa. I've been broke plenty of times since college, and it was terrifying, but I always knew exactly who I was in the middle of the terror. It sounds like you traded that knowing for the terror going away." Vanessa did not leave Richard that year, or the next. The story, unlike some others, wasn't ultimately about the marriage ending, but about what she and Richard chose, slowly and deliberately, to rebuild inside of it. She started quietly at first, making small choices purely because she wanted to, with no financial logic attached. An ugly, beloved secondhand armchair Richard privately hated, a painting class on Tuesday evenings that produced nothing especially good, a haircut she got purely because 19-year-old her would have loved it. Richard, for his part, began asking a question he'd apparently never quite known how to ask before. Not, "What do you need?" but, "What do you actually want?" separate from what makes sense. It took him, by his own admission, embarrassingly long to learn the difference. 2 years after the closet, their house looked on the surface almost identical. Same address, same furniture mostly, same comfortable financial cushion neither of them took for granted anymore. But Richard had started asking, unprompted, about her Saturday art class, remembering the names of her students without being told twice. And Vanessa had stopped, almost without noticing when exactly it happened, performing gratitude for the life she was actually living inside of. 18 months after the afternoon on the closet floor, Vanessa found herself teaching a free Saturday art class at the same community center where she'd once, as a teenager, waited for her mother's shift to end because there was nowhere else affordable to go. She wasn't paid for it, wasn't building anything toward a resume, gained nothing from it that could be counted or secured. Watching a 9-year-old girl's face light up over a finished drawing, Vanessa recognized, with something like relief, a version of the specific electric feeling from that concert 8 years ago. Proof, finally, that it hadn't been lost, just buried under a decade of choosing safe over true. If you've ever built a life so secure, you forgot to check whether it was actually yours, if you've ever mistaken the absence of fear for the presence of happiness, this one's for you. Security was never actually the same thing as being known, by yourself or by anyone else. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't building a life nothing can touch. It's risking that safety to find out who you are underneath it. If this story reminded you that being safe and being yourself aren't always the same thing, hit subscribe. We've got more stories like Vanessa's waiting for you. Ticket.